Greensboro would allow one Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to speak on their premises, except Bennett College. As a matter of fact, Dr. King spoke from this very podium, in this very chapel. And so it gives me great pleasure to welcome someone else who is so committed to civil rights, the national co-chair of the Bernie Sanders campaign, Senator Nina Turner.
History, and I hope it's not lost on anybody what she had to say. James Baldwin once said, know from whence we came. If we know from whence we came, there's virtually nowhere that we cannot go. But the fact that she talked about congress, I think the president was peeking in on my notes, but that's okay. Bringing up, re-enhancing one another, but you know, it goes without saying that we cannot mention the name of Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm enough. Because she was bold enough, bad enough to do the daggone thing, even when people told her she couldn't, that she didn't fit in, that she was not the one to run in 1972. But she said, oh yeah, baby, I am, and she did that daggone thing against all the odds. So we salute her. Laid out at our last location when we went to Prestige Barber College is that there's a difference between people who talk about it and somebody who was chained to black people during the movement. Oh yeah, baby. Senator Sanders has the courage, conviction, and consistency to not only lead this nation, but to bring the world with him. I bring you the senator by way of Brooklyn, who is the senator of the great state of Vermont, the one and the only, Senator Bernard Sanders.
Let me thank the Bennett College Choir. Thank you, guys. And let me thank Bennett College President Suzanne Walsh for her welcome. And we got a great panel here, and it's going to be followed by another great panel. And at the end of the panels, we want to hear your questions and your comments. So let me just begin by telling you why we are here. The fight for justice, whether it's economic justice or racial justice or social justice or environmental justice, has many, many strong opponents. But the strongest opponent that we have is an establishment that wants us to think small, not big. An establishment that wants to limit our imagination as to what kind of country and world we can be living in. And today, I am asking you, I'm begging you, that for the future of this country and for the future of this entire planet, because today we face the global crisis of climate change, which is going to require very bold action, bringing the world together. But for the sake of this country and the world, we need you to be actively involved in the political process. We need you to be thinking big, not small. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Iowa, and somebody gave my grandson, who's 8 years old, a little bit of a sign that he brought up on the stage. And the sign was a very profound quote from Nelson Mandela. And it said, "It is always impossible until it happens." You understand what that means? It is always impossible until it happens. In other words, what people will tell you today is raising wages in America so nobody lives in poverty. It's impossible, can't be done. Health care for everybody as a human right. Too complicated, it just can't be done. Making public colleges, universities, and HBCUs tuition-free can't be done. It's too difficult, too expensive. We only give tax breaks to billionaires. We can't afford to make colleges tuition-free. Canceling all student debt. Ending the so-called war on drugs. Reforming a broken and racist criminal justice system. Making sure that women get equal pay for equal work. Ending the demonization of immigrants and passing comprehensive immigration. See, everybody out there, the entire establishment, and that is the trick. Think small, don't think big, it can't happen. You're all powerless. You can't make anything out. That is what the system wants you to believe. They want you to believe all power rests with the 1%. Well, what we are here today to tell you is that is not the case. We are here to tell you that we stand up to the lies and the racism and the sexism and the homophobia and the xenophobia of Donald Trump. When we create a movement where we bring people together, no matter what the color of their skin is or where they were born or what their religion is, when we do that, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. That is the message of this gift. So with that, we begin the panel. And let me start off. Nina, you're going to go first?
Yes, ask.
I'm going to ask you the hard question here.
Okay.
All right, let me ask the question. Let's start off. We're at HBCU here, right?
We are.
What do HBCUs mean for America, Senator?
Well, thank you, Senator. I mean, historically, we know that the African American community, even before we were set free, understood that reading and writing was equivalent to freedom, that you couldn't separate your ability to be able to read, write, and comprehend from your freedom. And so it should be no surprise that one of the first things that our ancestors did was to seek to create opportunities through institutions like this and all over the country. And that's why historically black colleges and universities meant something then, and they still mean something now. It means freedom.
Senator, I'm a native of Chicago, and I wouldn't be where I am today if I wasn't a graduate of Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. And so I am a product of an HBCU, right? I'm a product of an institution that took me from the south side of Chicago and molded me and held me and told me that I could be something, saw something in myself that I didn't see in myself. And so when we talk about the importance of HBCUs, it is in the history of those institutions, but it is in what it is doing today for young black people who do not know what their lives could be If it hadn't have been for institutions that told you you are something, you're going to be something, and your duty to the world is not just in getting a degree and making money when you graduate. You have a duty to your community and to your people who you left behind. So HBCUs for a long time have been punching above their weight class, right? They make up a small degree of the number of universities, but the doctors are coming from here, the engineers, the teachers. And so these universities must be protected because we are the bedrock of not only black community, but democracy in this country.
Mike?
I'd like to start by saying Morehouse, because I'm a product of the house. There was a guy named Dr. Martin Luther King who went there. He was pretty important to this country. And I say that because oftentimes when we talk about historically black colleges and universities, we act like we're just talking about the 15% of Americans who are descendants of slaves. Historically black colleges and universities are good for the greater economy, are good for the greater community. You don't get Thurgood Marshall, you don't get Dr. King, you don't get George Washington Carver, you don't get Booker T. Washington, you don't get your Du Bois, you don't get the memory of Frederick Douglass kept alive if you do not have historically black colleges and universities. The only way that America becomes greater than it has ever been, when talking about making it great again, the way to make it greater is to make sure that historically black colleges and universities and the product of them, black, white, Indian, and indifferent, are a part of the contributing greater community. Yeah. We can be greater than we've ever been once we embrace that historically black colleges are not just a part of the African American tradition, they are part of the American tradition that makes us.
Ben Cohn was introduced as our next Secretary of Ice Cream. The first, right. And our platform is a pint in every freezer. Yay! Ben, I know you didn't go to an HBCU. You got some thoughts?
Right. I didn't go to an HBCU. I tried to go to a bunch of those white colleges, and I dropped out of all of them. So I'm glad that we've got HBCUs around because these guys graduated, right?
I dropped out.
Oh, you dropped out too? All right.
All right, don't take students, don't take that as the message of the day. You're supposed to graduate, not drop out. All right, let me throw it out to Mike. An issue that I've been running up against and seeing a little bit more, and that is the impact of the war on drugs in general and the African American community in particular. Thoughts?
The war on drugs, we now know from history, has been a tremendous failure. It was never a war on drugs. It was a war on progressive white kids and black people, ordered by Richard Nixon. It was from marijuana laws in 1937 that were put in place under the guise of marijuana makes black men ravenous rapists and white women, and from it got people in jazz clubs that were not supposed to be together. We know that race and poverty have been used through the war on drugs to continue to separate people and to use slave labor, because essentially slavery is illegal unless you're a prisoner. And we know that we have fed both public and private prison systems by delivering young people, black and other people of color, and poor white people because of the war on drugs. And what we now know is we get a do-over. And the do-over says that we now know from the crack era that the opium epidemic that's coming down is a health crisis. So we don't have to throw thousands of people with addictions in jail. But we have a greater opportunity. And the greater opportunity is this. Marijuana is going to be legal in our lifetime. Yes. Beyond getting a little stoned in the morning, which I didn't do this morning because I knew I had to come see you guys, marijuana provides through hemp paper, alternative to plastics, and it provides jobs through farming and resources. dispensaries, and what I would like to see, and I know what Senator Sanders can do, is not only take marijuana off the Schedule 1 list, I know that not only can we expunge the records of prisoners who are getting out, we can create, based on history, because after we deprohibited alcohol, blacks were locked out of that industry. Even though it was their music and their clubs a lot of times that fueled corn whiskey, a lot of y'all know what corn liquor is, right? We have an opportunity this time to take the people that are exiting jail, have expunged records, and creating a pathway as wide as this aisle directly into legal marijuana and creating economic sustainability in the same communities that will rise with that opportunity. So, as for me and my stoner friends, we'll be buying Ben & Jerry's and voting for Bernard Sanders.
Bill, you want to say a word on this? Anything to add to it?
I just want to say that's a real Green New Deal that we need right here. So but we are in a church of a place of worship. So listen, the only thing that I want to add, Senator, is that we cannot divorce the war on drugs and the fusion of crack cocaine in our communities from the movements that started from those communities, right? There were movements 40 and 50 years ago in Chicago, right, with black people, white people across race, gender, class, that had built strong infrastructures, right, that had organized communities across all dividers, right? And then we have this crack epidemic. And so what we're talking about now, right, is repairing the wrongs that were done on our communities. And we have a senator who's going to be the president who is saying that who is saying that we're not only going to repair the wrongs of the war on drugs, but we are going to bring back an era that we are organizing in our communities. We're not just coming and knocking on doors and saying we want your vote every 4 years, but we are building an infrastructure for people to take the agency in their lives. We are suffering as animals now, and we are saying you will be a human being in the way forward. And so that is the magic of what we're talking about now.
Thank you, Phil. Now, Ben, this one I know you do have some experience with.
You know, my parents were working class, and they were living in New York City, and they were able to buy a house based on a government program for low-interest mortgages that black people were not eligible for. And that is what created the somewhat of the wealth in my family that enabled them to move into the middle class and for me to get a decent education. In the midst of getting my higher education, one summer I was smoking some pot with some friends on a beach, and the cops caught us. And, we were handcuffed, and they took us to the station, and, they ended up giving us a ticket for littering a lighted cigarette butt on the ground. But I am well aware that if I was black, I would have ended up with a criminal record that would have prevented me from getting the loans that we needed to start Ben & Jerry's. And so it's really clear to me that if I was black, there wouldn't have been a Ben & Jerry's. And I'm conscious of that, I think about that, and that's one of the big reasons why I'm supporting Bernie, because he's going to put an end to that system.
We're going to go on to the next panel in a second, but before I do that, I want to ask you a question which I've been asking around the country. Be honest, give me your answer. How many people here know somebody, or yourselves, have been arrested for possession of marijuana? Raise your hand. Yeah, this is an astounding, this is what the war on drugs has done in this country. Has criminalized so many people in this room. This is amazing. And this is what, we were just earlier today at a barbershop, and we heard stories of people who, for whatever reason, were arrested when they were young. And sometimes when you get arrested when you're young, and you got a criminal record, you don't end up to be, Ben Cohen and start Ben and Jerry's. You end up on the wrong side, and you end up in jail and in and out of jail for your whole entire life because you can't get a job, you can't go to college, you can't get decent housing. The war on drugs has been incredibly destructive for millions and millions of people in this country. And we're going to end that war on drugs, and we're going to make marijuana legal. I am surrounded here by rock stars. And we can wander a little bit in our discussion, but I did want to stay on, maybe if we could, on one particular subject. And that millions of young people all over this country are leaving school deeply in debt. And I'm talking about a lot of debt. And I talked to a guy, it's a true story, I talked to a guy who's in his late 50s, and he said, Bernie, I've been paying off my student debt for decades. I am very afraid they're going to garnish my Social Security. They're going to take away his Social Security check because he hasn't paid off his student debt. All right, let me start off with somebody I have known for, it seems like my whole life. And somebody who has played an extraordinary role in raising political consciousness in America, and is kind of a great writer, what we call just an extraordinary public intellectual. Let me introduce Dr. Cornel West.
My dear sister Suzanne Walsh, give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up. And I'm just so blessed to be here with such magnificent folk. I tell you this, Sister Nina said Nina is one of the grand leaders, not just in this movement, in this nation. That's who she is. This brother, he's not just an actor, he is an artistic giant. This dear brother is an intellectual giant. He has been one of the most consistent writers and professors critical of any form of injustice. Brother Adolph. That's who he is. That's who he is. And I want to begin actually by saluting my dear sister Delrisha White, who graduated 2018. She was a student in my class at Harvard Law School. She won the Intellectual Contribution Prize at Harvard. She represents the grand legacy of this institution. Now, brother, what was the question again? No, we're talking about
anything you want.
No, I'm going to tell you just 2 seconds. Keep in mind, anytime you think about student debt, Think about what the Wall Street elites got from the Feds, where they got relatively interest-free loans for 3.5 years, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Given all the crimes on Wall Street, all that market manipulation and insider trading and fraudulent activity and predatory lending, why don't you treat your precious students in America as good or better than the bankers on Wall Street? That's all I
Dr. Reed.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't follow Cornell. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I'm going to deviate a little bit from the question for just a minute or two. I mean, I was just thinking about this when we listened to the first panel. So, you know, when I was young, a long, long time ago, the voting age was 21, right? In 1964, I was really frustrated, hurt, and angry that I couldn't cast my vote for Lyndon Johnson and the Great Society because I was 17. When I was 21, I didn't vote. I was in an all-night anti-election demonstration in Chapel Hill where I was in school. And I was just thinking about this because, and this might sound shocking. It might not make sense to younger people at all, but it occurred to me a while ago that from the standpoint of all of the interests that all of us share, right? Labor, environmental, gender justice, civil rights, our interests got more from Richard Nixon than we have gotten from any of the Democrats who have followed him. Wow. And that's not because he liked us more than they did. I mean, he frankly wished the bulk of us would go away, if not all of us. But we got it because the social movements that advanced our interests through the Nixon presidency were strong enough that he had to do it. Okay, fast forward, and I'll tell this little anecdote. I'll be brief. I'll try to. It's hard for a professor to do that. But in the spring of 2015, I was telling my friends, look, I don't want to pay attention to the primaries. Just remind me the day before I have to go vote for Hillary Clinton that I need to do it. And then I heard that Senator Sanders, whose career I've followed like forever, had announced, or was thinking about announcing. And then I listened to some of it, and I was down at a union convention in Atlantic City and bumped into Larry Cohen, who talked me into getting involved with Labor for Bernie, and there was nothing to do, and I'm a sort of in for a penny, in for a pound kind of person, so I've been doing that all along since. Why? Because as many of us have said, this is the most important election in any of our lives, even people as old as me. And here's what makes for the difference, right? And you can draw this line after the Sanders campaign to include anybody you want to think of. We finally, for the first time in my lifetime, have the opportunity to fight for what we want and really need instead of what we think we can get. And we have to take it now. And being the kind of person I am, like I'll have to end on a down note, which is this, that we have been going through this lesser evilism thing now for so much and for so long. And one of the takeaways from the 2016 election that nobody wants to talk about, but you know, I'm a political scientist, so I mean, this is a number that means something to me, that between 6.5 million and 9 million people who voted for Trump had voted for Senator Sanders and for Obama at least once. So what that means is that it's not a simple, straightforward story of white supremacy ruling. It's a fact that the Democrats have not offered working people of any color, age, race, gender, anything for so long. But here's the downside of this moment, right? What makes this election so important, right, is on the one side, the possibility that we have to win what we want. And on the other side, the reality that another four years of Trump will be followed by a version of Bolsonaro or Orban, right? Because we're at a moment like in American society now, and I'm a product of the 60s like a couple other people up here. And my parents are products of the New Deal era. And there have been threshold moments like that, but none as serious, none as sharp as this moment. And ironically, this is a moment when the class contradictions in American society are greater than they have ever been in the history of the Republic, but nobody wants to talk about them. And in fact, the fact that nobody wants to talk about them is a function of the fact that the contradictions are so sharp. Thank you very much.
Now, everybody knows Danny Glover is a great actor, but some of you may not know is that throughout his entire life, he has stood up for social and racial and economic justice. He has been a fighter his whole life. Danny Glover.
I'm just enamored with this diverse audience that's here for the purpose of changing the narrative in this country, and I'm happy to be here with you. It's hard to come behind two doctors, Dr. West and Dr. Reed, and to say anything that you're not shaking your head to, all right. But since I'm an elder here, and I say that with all responsibility, all the responsibilities of an elder, I had the opportunity to go to college at San Francisco State College in 1965, 66. I had the opportunity to leave campus with no debt. After I finished, there was no debt at all. I had the opportunity to work in public service in the city, for the city and county in San Francisco in the Office of Community Development and the Model Cities Program. Those were all cultures that were evolved at the moment in our time that I was in school, that were nurtured here in Greensboro, in Jackson, Mississippi, at Tougaloo, at Jackson State. Those are the moments that informed me in my life. It were the moments that allowed us to have the courage to go on strike in 1968 and form the first School of Ethnic Studies, and still the only School of Ethnic Studies in this country right now at San Francisco State University. It's celebrating its 50 years. So I am a product, as I am right now, this particular moment as well. And this particular moment, as Dr. Reed said, is one of the most important electoral moment that I've been involved in, from whether it was Mondale or whether it was others who posed. I'm standing with someone I believe in, someone whose voice is about truth, someone who's trying to find how do we fix this and how do we transform this country. This is all it's about here. And I'm standing here as all of you are here for this moment. Our question is that we have to organize, we have to build. Because not only do we do the work now, as we get him elected, we have to hold his feet to the fire when we get him in the White House. And I said, so we have to have all that. That's all that. This is here with you. We the people right here. We the people right here have the possibility and the responsibility to change the narrative of this country, to change the narrative of the country, and whatever we're talking about, whether we're talking about climate change and global warming, which is real, whether we're talking about, free college tuition, which is real, whether we're talking about the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration, which is real, whether we're talking about rebuilding our infrastructure in this country. It's all real, and it lies within our hand. Can you imagine that? You imagine that? Third term agenda, it lies within our hand. We can grasp it, we can imagine it, and we can imagine it, and we can dream it, we can make it real.
Oh my God. We can't hardly stand it. So we're gonna bring up our other colleagues back, Agnew, Killer Mike, and the Minister of Ice Cream. They're going to join us. So Dr. West, can you slide down a little bit? Agnew, Killer Mike, Ben Cohen, Senator, you slide down a little too so we can make some room. All right, and we're going to put some chairs in here. Killer Mike, you can come, or, yeah, he going to come around, okay. All right. Right here. We need another chair. Wait, scoot down a little bit. There we go. No. Okay. Okay. There we go. We did it.
How many professors does it take to arrange your own chair?
Senator, this is the time where we bring all our other sisters and brothers into the discussion. So.
Okay. I think we got a, what's it, so we got a microphone here, and we got one there. All right, so if people want to ask questions and make comments, come on up. We're not going to probably be able to answer every question and comment, but just line up, Mike here.
And we should allow space for Bennett students to ask questions.
All right.
First.
Okay, Bennett students, if you want to get to the front of the line.
The first 4 questions.
All right, first questions come from anybody from Bennett College online?
Come on.
Bennett College? Okay, good. Got Bennett College here? Okay. All right, let's start right there. Okay, you're the first. Give us your name, please.
Hello, I'm Destiny Wansi. I'm from Washington.
Speak closer to the mic.
Hello, I'm Destiny Wansi. I'm from Washington, D. I'm a chemistry major. And my question is, I came from a single-parent home that was like really struggling, and like through the drug war, a lot of stuff happened. So how are you going to help families that are going through drug war currently? Like parents that are abusing drugs, basically.
Well, we're going to help in a number of ways. For a start, we're going to expunge, do away with the records of anybody arrested for possession of marijuana. Second of all, we're going to provide a massive investment into depressed communities around the country, African American communities, creating jobs, helping small businesses, improving the schools, and providing health care to all people. And thirdly, as I mentioned a moment ago, we're going to make public colleges and universities and HBCUs tuition-free, which means that anybody, regardless of his or her income, will be able to get a higher education. Not only a college education, but get an education in a trade school, if that's what you want to do. Those are some of the ways we'll get it.
Hello, Senator Sanders. My name is Marshall Parker. I'm a sophomore political science major at the North Carolina A&T. But I know a lot of people here. I used to go to Bennett. So what I'm very interested in is when you first had the panel, you guys were talking about HBCUs and how they should be tuition free. But also what I'm interested in is, do you have a plan for funding HBCUs? Because right across the street, we have North Carolina A&T that I now attend. But I once did attend Bennett College, and the disparities between the two is very real. And I feel like that we need something in place to where the remaining 91 HBCUs that aren't in the top 10 also receive the money that they need.
Well, we do have a plan. And the plan is that to make public colleges and universities and all HBCUs tuition-free, to significantly increase Pell Grants, to significantly increase work-study programs, with the results that nobody, regardless of your income who goes to college, will come out with debt. And to cancel all student debt in America, what that will cost is about $2.2 trillion over 10 years. We pay for that by a tax on Wall Street speculation. So this is not a pie-in-the-sky idea. This is paid for. We know how to get the money, and we know how to get the money to the students and to the universities.
Thank you. And then, just one quick nosy question. Are you opposed to having Warren as your VP or running as Warren's VP?
After we win the nomination, we'll determine the VP. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Felicia Park, a former Bennett Bell, and I go to North Carolina A&T now, by the way. I'm also... Okay.
You're very shy.
Okay, so I am also an immigrant from Georgetown, Guyana, and I wanted to know what your plans were for immigrants that are here and immigrants that are in school and trying to pursue a higher education.
Well, the answer's gotten me a lot of opposition, and there'll be probably 30-second ads attacking me for it. But I believe that every person in this country, whether you're documented or undocumented, has the right to get a higher education tuition-free. Just getting back to the point that I think everybody up here has made. What this struggle is about, what we are engaged in, and Dr. Reed said it, Danny Glover said it, Cornel West, Nina Turner, this is a struggle for what we believe are human rights. Human rights. Healthcare is a human right. Education is a human right. Turning on your water faucet and getting clean drinking water is a human right. We have 500,000 Americans tonight who will be sleeping out on the streets. Affordable housing is a human right.
Hello, my name is Brenda Reyes. I'm a Bennett Bell, and I am a freshman. I am majoring in biology. And as a Latina, and for the Dreamers, and for my raza, I am here. I'm standing here because my cousins, they can't come to school. They have to pay double tuition. They can't even get accepted. I'm standing here because my mother, she is an immigrant, because she wanted to give me a better future. Here, as a Latina, I am gonna vote for you. But you have to promise me that there will be a way for immigrants who have done everything here just to give their families a home, a better life, and everything. I want you to promise me that you will find a way for them to become U.S. citizens or residents. please help them find a path for citizenship.
Amen.
Let me just say two things. Number one, the President of the United States, which I hope to be, has the power through an executive order to provide immediate legal status to the 1.8 million young people in the DACA program. That is what I will do on the first day in office. Second of all, I believe, absolutely, that we need comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship for the 11 million.
And by the way, you are the president.
Hello, my name is Ashley Robinson. I'm a junior social work student minoring in entrepreneurship from Plainfield, New Jersey. I'm a proud Bennett Belle, and currently I serve on the Student Government Association here at Amick. Currently I'm taking business law, and my question is pertaining to the business plans you have. But as well, a couple years ago, I attended Rutgers Overbound, which is a TRIO program. Rutgers Overbound, which is a TRIO program in New Jersey that represents underrepresented students. Without that program, I wouldn't be here. And we went to DC to represent and advocate for them. And I wanted to know what were your plans with that and how to fund those and keep those going.
Does everybody know what the TRIO programs are? They are really fantastic and successful programs. And what they do, which is exactly what we should be doing all over this country, is they reach out to kids in high school and younger. Kids who, in most cases, their parents have never gone to college. So you're talking low-income and working class young people who might not ordinarily figure out how to get into college. And what they do is they mentor those young people. And the success rate has been phenomenally high. It's a great program. I will significantly expand funding for those programs.
Yeah.
I want to, before we call on the next questioner, I wanted to say this. You know, I'm talking about spending money on this and spending money on that. People say, well, where are you going to get all that money? And this is the point that I want to make, which you don't see much on television or read in the papers. You are living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Problem is, we have more income and wealth inequality today than any time since the 1920s. You got 3 people in America. I want you all to hear it. You don't see this on television. And that has to do with who owns the major networks. You got 3 people in America who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. You got that? 3 people. Over the last 30 years, the top 1% have seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. 1%, $21 trillion. Bottom half of Americans lost $900 billion in wealth. So when people tell me, how are you going to make public colleges and universities and HBCUs tuition free? How are you going to cancel all student debt? How are you going to lead the world in fighting against climate change? I will tell you how. We will make the largest corporations in this country and the wealthiest people start paying their fair share of taxes. It appears we only have time for 2 more questions, so I apologize, and we want our closing remarks to the panel. Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Jasmine Jones. I'm an interdisciplinary studies from Elizabethtown, North Carolina, and I'm a junior here at Bennett College. My question is about teaching laws. 20 years ago, my mama had a little spectacle of weed in her car, and it's been on her record ever since. So which has stopped her from being able to be a public teacher. Like 3 days ago, my mom called me and said our house was getting foreclosed.
So it limited my mama to be able to work. And I know she really struggled because she had to pay for me to go to school and my sister. So I was wondering, like, how could you help teacher laws? Because it's really hard for a single parent to be able to have one job and not be able to, like, meet ends for her child.
Thank you very much. And I know that what you told us is not easy. And all that I want to say is what you just told us is the story of millions of families in this country. We don't talk about that. You don't see that too much on television. All right, somebody who got their home foreclosed, somebody who was maybe arrested when they were young and what happened in their lives. And all I can tell you, and again, I know it's hard, you know, Dr. Reed was talking about the world changes and an economy that works overtime for the wealthiest people in this country. That's what you got. You got massive tax breaks, you got deregulation, you got trade deals that allow corporations to send jobs abroad, throw American workers out on the street. So whether the issue is criminal justice reform, ending the war on drugs, building affordable housing, we just introduced a housing bill the other day, housing proposal that will make it much harder for landlords to throw working people out on the street. We're talking about building millions of units of affordable housing and putting a whole lot of people to work in doing that, making rents affordable in the United States. So all that I can say is that we will, and I want your imagination, whether it's housing, whether it's education, whether it's the war on drugs, whether it's climate change, think about a government and policies that work for working families, not just wealthy campaign contributors.
Sir, it is not in my imagination, it is the sound of Jubilee. Forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. And it is a holiday that is given by God to a descendant of David, a Jew. And I have been trying to declare Jubilee since I went to prison on the 4th of July for trying to bring the flag down. And I have not been loud enough to outweigh Donald Trump's idiocracy. And I believe with all of my heart that we have $22 trillion inheritance to give to these people and to stop the foreclosures. Please, will you please entertain the idea of standing on the word together with me? Because the truth is, Donald Trump is the devil.
Last question.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for being here, Senator Sanders. It's an honor to be asking this question, but my name is Denver. I am a North Carolina State University student, and I am a transgendered male. And I'm a transgendered male. As a transgendered individual, I have been denied employment and equal pay. So my question for you, Mr. Sanders, is when you're elected president, what are you going to do to fight for transgender individuals' rights, as well as equal pay for individuals regardless of sex or gender identity?
My answer is a very simple answer. We're going to do our best and place as a major, major, major priority to end all forms of discrimination in this country. And that includes That includes discrimination on sexual orientation, discrimination against transgender people, discrimination against people because of the color of their skin, their religion, or the country that they came from. We will put together a cabinet and an administration that looks like America, and we will implement policies that work for ordinary people and not just the people who have the money. Thank you. All right, let's just briefly conclude here with a few words from the panel. Where'd Nina go? Oh, she's up. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, Mike.
Because you know Donald Trump is a publicity stunt gone bad. Let me ask you, do you know that 9/11 was an inside job by our own government?
Where?
Do you know that?
Y'all good out there? Let me hear everybody say Bernie Sanders. Y'all hear me? Can you hear me? Hear me? First of all, let's just acknowledge that young lady. She was here, she was heard. We appreciate you. Sorry we couldn't answer to Donald Trump being the devil. But there's a lot of devils out there, but the Lord knows we are here to stomp the devil and shout today. Now, I'm glad they let me go before Nina and Cornell, because, woo, they can speak. I just want to say one of my favorite writers growing up was a man named James Baldwin. I remember Baldwin saying, you ask my father to wait, my brother to wait, my uncle to wait, how long must I wait on freedom? How long must I wait on rights and equality and liberty? And as a black child, that resonated with me because I knew I'd been denied, my father had been denied, my grandfather had been denied, and I personalized that. But as I grew, I started to understand poor white people have been denied, women have been denied, gays and lesbians, transgender people have been denied. Everybody, immigrant children have been denied. Everybody outside of that 1% has been denied. So I want you to take a few seconds to, like they do in the black church, look to your left and look to your right. Say the time is now. Look to your neighbor and say, neighbor, the time is now. There are more of us. There are more of us. We're stronger. We will wait no longer. The time is now. When you go to that booth next year, I need you to carry in that booth the memory of this room. Black, white, straight, gay, men, female. We are together. We are united. Our time is right now. We will not wait 4 more years. We will not wait 20 more years. We will not wait 2 more presidents. We will not wait 3 more presidents. This is the president, the next president of the United States of America. The time is now. The time is not in the future. The time is not some abstract time. The time is not something that might be. The time ain't something that could be. The time ain't nothing that should be, that would be. When I say the time, say now. The time is now. The time is now. The time is now. It ain't tomorrow. It ain't the day after. It ain't coming next week. The time is now. The time is now. It ain't next year. It ain't just next election. The time is now. The time is now. Senator Bernard Sanders will be the next president of the United States of America.
Okay, who wants to go next? let me just thank all of you in Bennett College for allowing us to use this beautiful, beautiful chapel. Thank you all. We'll see you soon. Take care.